Welcome to the She Thinks Big podcast. Get ready to level up your thinking and expand your horizons. I'm your host, Andrea Liebross, your guide on this journey of big ideas and bold moves. I am the best-selling author of She Thinks Big, the entrepreneurial woman's guide to moving past the messy middle and into the extraordinary. I support women like you with the insights and mindset you need to think bigger and the strategies and systems you need to turn that thinking into action and make it all a reality. Are you ready to stop thinking small and start thinking big? Let's dive in. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the She Thinks Big podcast. I am excited today because I am bringing you what I call a guest expert. So I don't know if anyone's caught on, but I have 3 types of episodes. 1, just me episodes called solo episodes. 2, where I interview a client. And then 3, where I bring someone else on that to me seems super interesting from the outside world. And that is what today is all about. I have Lori Pappas with me today, and she and I were introduced through a mutual connection. We have Jane Meyer-Ubel through Bedside Reading. Let's get to it. Lori, I am happy to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I'm so excited that you think big.
Yes. And you think like a wise woman.
Well, now, I'm in this what I like to say is that I spent my first 50 years making money for men and myself.
Okay.
And now these 50 years, it's all about helping women. And then since I'm going to live to be 127, then maybe the last 27 years might be for whoever knows, might be reinvented in some other way.
Who knows? How did you get to 127? I want to know.
Well, because I just know that to be true.
I love it.
Yeah, I just know it to be true.
Would you mind sharing with the audience how old are you right now?
75.
Okay. All right. So we today have Lori, age 75, just returned from Mexico.
Yes.
But Mexico is not the only place that she has ever been. And I think part of what I want you listeners to hear today is really about her journey, her story, and then how that has really led her to the work that she's doing now, where she's written a book, and the book's called The Magic of Yes, Embrace the Wise Woman Within. And I don't know if you couldn't have probably written that at age 25.
No, I really couldn't. I mean, I hadn't really found her yet, though she had found me.
She had found you. Okay.
Found me.
It's so interesting. All right. So I think sometimes, and I know I always talk to you, whoever's listening to me, you're probably walking your dog, driving to Target, you're emptying the dishwasher as you're listening to this podcast, and you're very caught up in what you're doing right now. And sometimes it's really hard to see beyond that. So how did you get to this place where you've realized there's a wise woman within? Or tell us the story.
Okay. Well, I, like so many women, experienced childhood abuse. And I made the decision. Well, first of all, I don't know that I really realized that it was abuse.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, I don't think I really realized it. I just thought my mother was really weird and off the rocker, and whatever she said really didn't matter because it wasn't real to me. But what it did was I disassociated. So I really disassociated myself from that abuse. And my strategy to deal with anything that I didn't think was valid was to ignore it, to basically run away. But yet, when I was 17 years old, I knew that I had to take responsibility for the person I was going to become in my life, and that it was up to me to build that life brick by brick. And so I started out on adventures and did what I felt like doing. And it ended up being, I moved down to LA by myself. I was because I was underage. My dad forced me to go to a Bible school, which really didn't fit real well with me. And I managed to escape from that. And I ended up getting married really young, in that I needed somebody to love me. I thought that he was very decisive. It just turned out he wasn't very smart, and he was very stubborn. And I wasn't smart enough, much less wise enough, to realize that that stubbornness was not decisiveness. But what it did, that marriage was 11 years. And what that did is help me develop very good skills to understand where he was coming from, so I could present what I wanted us to do in words that he could handle and in phrasing that he could process. And I became a really good salesperson. I really believe that that marriage helped me become a really, really good salesperson.
That's so interesting, because I just had this whole discussion yesterday about sales. We were talking about sales, and some women have this resistance to sales, like they don't want to sell, they're not good at it. And I brought up the point that you are actually selling all day long, every day, to someone in your family, to your partner, to your children, to your coworker. Like, that's funny that you literally just said that. It's true.
Yeah, and it's so true. And somewhere really early on, I heard the acronym WIFM, WIIFM, which is what's in it for me.
Yes, I use that too.
And the me, is the other person. So I learned how to get into another person's shoes and then basically sell to myself. And that, I think, was the secret to my early success. And I became an entrepreneur. I started a software company when I was a single mom with 2 little kids. I had no business doing that, but I did it and was really lucky in that I was in a market that was just poised to embrace the personal computer. And that was right at that time.
Okay.
So the business grew, it became really successful. And because I didn't have money, I had to figure out how I could make sales of a complex product to people that were afraid of buying over the telephone. And so we became very early pioneers in telesales and teledemos. I mean, even to the point where the very first laptops, now it's hard for your listeners to probably even visualize, but think of the first portable computers were the size of a roll-on bag that's marginally acceptable on the airline today. I mean, those suckers were heavy and they were really luggables. And the screens were super tiny. And then you had this huge box. Anyway, Compaq came out with a smaller computer, considered a compact, which I would say is like the size of a double shoebox. And so we ended up sending those computers out on loan to customers so they could unplug their fax machine, plug in that portable computer, and then we could, through a dial-up connection, do demos. And it really worked. We started kind of owning that market. And by the time I was 49, I was able to sell the business. The problem was the business really had to find me. So we kind of go to the backstory. Here I was, this early traumatized young person who disassociated, which meant that my professional life became very fine-tuned, but my personal life was still quite a mess. And there was a big gap between that professional me and that personal me. But retiring at 49, my son had a really bad accident, which was horrific. And he ended up dealing with alcoholism and drug addiction, which meant that we went to a rehab center. And during Parents Week, I heard the first time I ever really heard about PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and the fact that I probably had been traumatized. And the idea that, oh my God, there's something inside of me that I haven't dealt with. Being an overachiever, of course, I had to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that opened up an opportunity for me to really start doing personal work and all this inner child work and deal with all my crap. And so that was the early 50s. But then I was getting bored being retired. And I also really needed to get out of my second marriage. I'd been in that for about 20 years, and it never was a really good marriage, but it was just easier to stay in it than to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed in it. But we were also traveling all over the world during this time. And I fell in love with indigenous people and with Africa. And I was in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and a little girl came up to me with flies on her eyes. And I thought, oh my God, that could be my little granddaughter. And this little girl did nothing wrong to be in this disease-ridden life. And my granddaughter didn't do anything pre-birth to be born into my family. So I decided I was going to start an international charity and get flies off of little girls' faces. And that led me to Ethiopia, which was wonderful because I finally, escaping to Africa, allowed me to get rid of that husband. And when I was living and working in Ethiopia was really when I truly started embracing that wise woman within. So that's a real flash through a lot of.
That's a flash. That is. Tell me about, you said really early on, you used this phrase, I learned through that first marriage probably, or to take responsibility for who I was going to be.
Right.
So sometimes I talk about how we have to become responsible adults and get out of our emotional childhood. And do you feel like that really you had your own agency, right? You could make your own choices. You figured that out. And do you think that taking responsibility for who you were going to be was something that was always in the back of your mind? Or do you think it kind of ebbed and flowed and you had to keep reminding yourself of that?
I think I just knew it. But I also remember a friend of mine in my early 20s had found this slogan, if it is to be, it's up to me. All I have to do is do it.
I love that.
Isn't that great? It's so plain. It's just,
yes.
If it is to be, it's up to me. All I have to do is do it.
Love it.
Now, we all know that it's more complicated than that at times, but that really is the nugget. And it really is I can't say, oh, I want to be an astronaut and not do everything to prepare myself to be an astronaut. Now, that's a real out there type of, forget the pun, example. But it really is what it takes, is that if I want to have a voice, if I want to be in the game, I have to do the work to prepare myself to be in the game, which means I need to know what the rules are. I need to know who the players are. I need to know what things look like. And then I have to suit up, gain the muscle memory, gain the skills so that I can participate.
Yes.
And that's really what it's all about, isn't it, Andrea? Is that you can't just say, oh, I want that, and then be pissed off that you don't have it. Right. Because you're really not qualified to have it sometimes.
No. Tell me about this luck thing.
Well, I truly believe that you cannot be lucky if you don't take a risk. Well, I mean, the lotto, you take a risk, you spend $1. But it's really, the whole thing of it is that you have to set yourself up so that you have the opportunity to be lucky. And now probably the biggest lesson I learned with that is that if you want to have options, you need to be open-minded enough to be able to understand that you have options.
Yes.
If you sit there in a little corner and say, oh, poor me, yeah, you can do that, Lori, because of blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, maybe first of all, you should turn around in the corner so you're looking out instead of looking into the corner. And then you need to open your eyes, and then you need to start observing, and then you need to start, expanding your world a little bit. But you're not lucky if you don't put yourself in a situation where you take the risk and you explore opportunities. And then you make decisions based on knowledge that you gain.
Right. I like to say you have to create your own luck.
Yeah, you do need to create your own luck. But, it is interesting. I had a friend that started her business the same time I started mine. We both were pretty much in the same situation. She was a wonderful networker, where I really was not much of a networker. But she chose a crowded market, and I chose a niche market. And I understood the fact that I needed to satisfy demand. I didn't want to create demand. And she started hers where she was trying to create demand in a crowded field. Now, I ended up being very lucky, and she didn't end up being quite as lucky. Now, we both took risks.
True.
We both started business. We were both single moms, and we both worked really hard. I ended up being lucky. She didn't end up being lucky with that. Now, I think she could have made some other decisions and ended up being luckier. So
Okay.
it also really depends. So it goes back to what you're saying as far as you create your own luck.
Yeah.
Because you can really, if you follow the breadcrumbs, you can see, oh, here's a branch that wasn't so great. So what I say, if you want to be really lucky, learn to make a lot of little mistakes really fast.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
you have to make mistakes in order to get where you want to go. Like
exactly.
There's no way it's going to happen. Right.
And the better you are at speeding up that cycle time,
Yep.
you really want a fast cycle time, and you've got to be really good at making those mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You get to be really good at it. I mean, I've made a hell of a lot of them. I don't even remember them, though, because they were all little,
Yes. Yes. Well, that kind of goes to the second thing you shared with me before we started recording is even when you're forced to give up, exciting new paths open. But sometimes you have to get to the beginning of the path, right?
You have to get yourself there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to open your eyes. So you say, oh, that is a path.
Yes.
And what, Andrea, that's one of the biggest things is people just don't understand that, oh, there was a path I could have explored.
Yep. And then, or why do you think they don't explore it? What would you say the number one reason is they don't explore it?
Well, because they had decided they were going to go down this path and they're going to go down that path. And so another one, oh, why are they going to turn that way? They decided they wanted to go another way.
And they're going to see it through and they're going to, they already invested X, Y, and Z in it and they wouldn't want to switch now. And right.
I know my husband, I'm on my third husband now and he's great.
Is he going to stay until 127?
Well, he is going to stay, but probably, yeah, he's definitely the keeper. Okay. And we joke about the fact about how flexible we are. And we are. We say, okay, we're going to do this today. And then something comes up and we say, oh, well, that sounds better. Let's just do that. Or, oh, no, that didn't really work so well. What the hell? Let's just do this. And wonderful.
I love it. All right. So is that experiencing the magic of yes? Is that
absolutely.
Like you just being, hey, that sounds good. Let's go. Yeah, it's a yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It is saying yes. And then the minute you say, oh, this isn't so great, then turn around. We laugh over the fact that both of us feel very strongly about what we think about today. But if you give me some new information that sounds a little better, I can be just as strongly of an advocate for that and forget what I was advocating yesterday. And I think that's really key is don't be married to what you think is right. Keep looking, keep asking, keep seeking, and be open to think about new things.
So I'm actually today facing this sort of minor decision, but it seems big because it's today. Tomorrow I'm supposed to do something and it's not kind of turning out how I envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm toying. I actually decided before we got on this call that I'm going to say I'm not doing it. Right.
Uh-huh.
But how I got to that was I asked myself, what do I want to experience tomorrow?
Right.
Like, what do I want to experience? And it's not the result of what I think is going to happen. And if I say yes. So that was like, so you said, like maybe here's a new experience and that aligns more with where I want to go, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, so what do I love? What do I want? What do I want to experience? I think we sometimes forget those questions because we get stuck in this is either what I'm supposed to do or this is the thing I said I was going to do. So I want to see it through, right?
Well, you brought up one of my favorite phrases is supposed to.
Yeah.
Is you as an individual have the unalienable right to define your own supposed to. You really do. You have the sanctity of being that gives you the right to define your own moral compass.
Yes.
And if you don't like how something feels, it probably means that it's buttoned up against something that inside of you really doesn't feel good about. And that's honoring the wise woman within you.
Yeah.
It
That's
really
kind of, so it's funny because the way I kind of reasoned this thing out an hour ago was, one part of my brain is like, it would be a smart business decision to say yes to this thing. Like that would be my business owner hat on, it should be a yes.
Mm-hmm.
But then my like human Andrea person was like, okay, yeah, but how I want to feel tomorrow and how I would want to feel in a situation like this, that rises above this, what a good business
That's
owner
great.
does.
That's good for you, Andrea. Good for you, because you allowed the essence of you to be the winner.
That's what happened. Like,
yeah.
It's
and allowing the essence of you to be the winner is honoring your self-worth.
Yeah. So is that when you say embrace the wise woman within, is that a good example of that?
Well, I think that is a good example of that because you listen to her.
Yes. Yes.
She could be in there, but if you're not listening to her, she's really not going to talk as much.
So you have to be intentional in listening to her. I think
you need to be intentional and you need to give yourself time to reflect. And that's what you did this morning.
Right.
So you consciously, intentionally thought about how you would feel if you did that. And you thought, I don't want to feel that way.
No. So you just said something again, like I gave myself the time to think about it.
Exactly.
And I think that is key because too often I think we just go to solving the problem or the quick yeses or what's the plan? What's my action from this? And I just kind of was like, no, how do I want to feel with this? Like, this isn't what I want to experience.
And how I would describe that is instead of focusing on the doing, which we as overachievers and curious, ambitious women do.
Yep.
We think of the doing.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of ever really honoring the being and how to feel. And that's what's so different for me in this career. Here at 75 years old, I've started a new career. I'm now an author and a speaker, and it's not about what I do. My first career with my for-profit business was helping these thousands of manufacturing companies become more productive. My second career as a humanitarian was helping 100,000 people have a chance to have a healthy life. So I'm known as somebody that does stuff.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden, I'm putting myself out there saying, well, but this is really how to be, not how to do. So it's a whole different set of measures.
It is. It's a how to be and not how to do.
Yeah. And that's a really big transition.
It is. And I think it doesn't happen. Well, I guess I'd go back to like when you were 25, right? It might have been happening, but it wasn't conscious. You didn't know it was happening. And you probably weren't even doing it well because you weren't giving it the space or time. But I think I've evolved enough and I'm only up to 52. So you're ahead of me.
Yeah.
You're ahead of me. But like, that's something that I've learned.
Yeah. And that's great.
And explored too, like exploring it, what it feels like. It's
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really wonderful. And so I really think, and I hadn't really thought of this so much before, I think that when I was 17 years old, living alone, I had time where I just reflected. I listened to those old, like Joan Baez,
yeah.
Faithful, all that. It was in the 60s. And I reflected, and I was wise. And I did access that wise woman within during that time. And that's when I realized I needed to become the curious entrepreneur in my own life.
So fun.
The next time I really took the time to reflect to that extent was 40 years later, 57 years old, sitting by myself in my house in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and the electricity would be out, and it'd be cold because at night it'd get really cold, and there's gaps in the windows and gaps in the doors, and so I'd sit there huddled, wearing all the clothes that I had under a blanket with some candles on, and I would just think, and that really became the genesis of my book, because I really then had a lot of experience, and I had the time to really reflect on what that meant. And then the other layer of it was I was working with these incredibly marginalized people that just hadn't had any of the opportunity I had, but I could see the wisdom in them. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking about how that all works. And does this make sense? And I would examine my Western beliefs against their beliefs. And it just opened a whole new world for me. So you never know, but reflection is so important.
It is important. Well, that seems like a great place to wrap this up. Reflection is so important. Is there any other one sentence words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the listener?
Well, I think I would say, don't be afraid to keep reinventing yourself.
Love it.
It's fun. It's really, really fun. And it just gets the juices going. So try different things. And if you like it, great. And the other thing I would say is you don't have to endure. You don't.
Yeah, that's so good.
The permission to get up and walk out. If you don't like what's going on, walk out. Walk away.
I'm going to do that right when we get off. I'm going to make my phone call.
Okay, good for you. Good for you.
So if my listener here wants to get a copy of your book and learn more about you, where should they go?
Well, you can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever and just type in The Magic of Yes.
Okay, and I will have that in the show notes.
Right. And so The Magic of Yes should just come up. The name is Lori Pappas. But it's right there, and all the links to everything I do, my newsletter, my Facebook group, all that is on my website, which is just loripappas.com. So
perfect. Easy
to get to.
Yes, and we'll have all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. This has been so fun.
It's really fun. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thanks for tuning into the She Thinks Big podcast. If you're ready to learn the secret to unleashing your full potential, don't forget to grab a copy of my book, She Thinks Big, the entrepreneurial woman's guide to moving past the messy middle and into the extraordinary. It's available on Amazon and at your favorite bookstore. And while you're there, grab a copy for a friend. Inside, you'll both find actionable strategies and empowering insights to help you navigate the complexities of entrepreneurship and life and step confidently into your extraordinary future. If you found value in today's episode, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're ready to take this learning a step further and apply it to your own business and life, head to linkswithans.com and click the button to schedule a discovery call. Until next time, keep thinking big.